On Sunday morning, we looked at the next meal with Jesus. And it was a meal after the resurrection. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? 3 times Jesus asked Peter. This is the same question Jesus has for us. Do you love me? This has been the Lord's question since the beginning. This has been the Lord's command from the beginning. What did God say to his children? He said, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commands that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates." This is the morning and evening prayer. This is a command for every follower of Jesus. It's a call to love Jesus. It's a call to sacrifice for Jesus. It's a call to obey Jesus. But what would make anyone want to live like that? What would make someone want to do that? What would make us want to sacrifice our lives for Christ, to spend my life obeying him? There's got to be a motive. The motive is love. And this is the only power that can motivate this kind of devotion. We know that people who love greatly sacrifice greatly. People who love greatly will give up things for those that they love. Love is powerful. It's a powerful emotion. It's a powerful motivation. Even earthly love is so powerful, it can draw the best out of people. It's love that makes people sacrifice everything to live with another person for the rest of their life. Love is a powerful emotion on a human level. It gives us why we sacrifice for anyone, for our children. Some has such great love that they've gone beyond personal causes, that they give their lives for their nation, for their neighbors. Jesus says, "Greater love has no one than this, that one would lay down his life for those he loves." People die for love. It's powerful, powerful motivation. And Christians need to be concerned. It is the love that we have for the Lord that controls us, Paul said. Some of those translations say constrains us, motivates us, drives us. We love because it's powerful. And when you move into the spiritual dimension of this divine love, Jesus asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?" And why is Jesus asking Peter, "Do you love me?" Before Jesus went to the cross, all of the disciples let Jesus down, all of them. But Peter's betrayal of Jesus was particularly grievous. First, Peter was in the inner circle, Peter, James, and John. Those were the closest to Jesus. Jesus gave Peter the most input. Peter, he was one who absolutely insisted that if Jesus was taken, that he wouldn't fall away. If you are taken, Peter says, even if all of the rest fall away on account of you, I will never. I will go to prison or even death. I don't care if they come with swords. I don't care if we're going to die. I'll go to death with you, Jesus. Now, what is Peter saying? Peter's saying, Jesus, I've been hanging out with these other 11, and they don't love you like I love you. I give you more allegiance. But Peter, as we all know, very publicly denied Jesus. He was in a courtyard when Jesus was on trial. And 3 different times people said, "Aren't you a follower of Jesus?" And not once, but 3 times, very loudly, "I don't know him." The 3rd time Peter said it, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." And immediately the rooster crowed and the Lord turned and looked at Peter. And Peter remembered what the Lord said. Peter said, "I don't know him." Just think, Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And Jesus asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" Now, what happened right before that? Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" Now, this meal that Peter eats with Jesus is after the resurrection. The disciples are supposed to be on a mountain waiting for Jesus. But Peter, being the leader that he was, talked some of them into going back to their jobs. Fishing. They fished all night. Nothing. Jesus is standing on the shore, but they don't know it's him. Did y'all catch anything? They said no. Throw your nets on the right side of the boat. Now, you would think that they would think what's happened. They threw their nets. Wow, 153 large fish. John says to Peter, "It is the Lord." Peter jumps out of the boat, I guess leaving everyone else to do the work. And there's Jesus. He's already got some fire going. He asked for some of the fish, and he's cooking up these miracle fish. And in verse 15 it says, when they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, he said this, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" Now that got his attention because Jesus didn't call him his name. He called him Simon, son of John. That was his name before he met the Lord. Jesus had given him another name. You used to be Simon, now you're a Peter. Peter was the Lord's name for him. Why? Because Peter was going back to his old life. And so he went back to his old name. This is like when your mother uses your entire name and you know you're in trouble. Peter, do you love me? Now Peter's actually saying, I love you. And Jesus isn't asking about the other people. He's asking him, are you willing to give up this life? The boat, the fish, the nets. And the word Jesus uses in that first thing is agape. Do you agape me? It is the purest love. It is the noun form of what we use as the greatest meaning of divine love. Do you really love me, Peter, at the highest level? That's the question. Now, do you love me enough to live for me? Do you love me enough to walk away from all this? Are you going to trust me? Peter replies, he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Now, this is interesting. Jesus uses the word agape, which is the big word, but Peter uses phileo. He dropped down a notch. It's kind of the brotherly love, the Philadelphia love. It's a warm, affectionate love. It's a friendship love. Now, this is amazing because Jesus said, tend my sheep. Now, the Greek word there actually means pasture my lambs. There's grace here. With the deepest level of perfect love, Jesus accepts him. Pasture my lambs, feed my lambs, take care. Simon, son of John, do you agape me? Yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you. Take care of my sheep. Jesus said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, painfully repeating his old name, do you love me? But this time, Jesus drops down to Peter's word, do you phileo love me? In other words, Jesus is questioning, do you at least brotherly love me? Do you at least Now, why is Jesus asking it like that? Because of what Peter had done. Peter was so grieved because Jesus had said to him a third time. He's not grieved because he said it 3 times. He's grieved because Jesus came down a notch. Do you phileo love me? And again, he says, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my sheep, tend my sheep, pasture my sheep. No more fishing. No more fishing. No more boats. Your job is to feed my lambs. Now, equally as important, right, is a command that you live this life of love. It's characterized by a sacrifice for Jesus. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross. It means, am I following Jesus, I might die. And that's exactly what happens. Jesus said, truly, truly, I say unto you. This means absolutely true. It's very true. Truly, truly, I tell you, when you were young, you dressed yourself and you went where you wanted to go. But when you are old, someone else will dress you and lead you where you don't want to go. Now, all the disciples knew this expression. This is an expression that is telling Peter, in the future, you're going to be taken prisoner. You're going to be bound up. You're going to be hauled off to a place you don't want to go. You're going to stretch out your hands, exactly like I had done for crucifixion. It was a euphemism for crucifixion. He's telling Peter, when you get old, Peter, you're going to be crucified. You're going to be taken prisoner. How do we know that? In verse 19, it says, Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. And then he said, follow me. Peter, you're going to be a martyr. You're going to be a crucified martyr. And remember, Peter is. He actually is in a dungeon, and they bring him, and he dies. Why is Jesus telling him this? Why is he saying, do you love me? Feed my sheep. And then why does he tell him that he's going to be crucified? I mean, it seems like you wouldn't want to know exactly what was going to happen. But here's the grace. Peter needed to know that. He needed to know that in a life and death situation, he was not going to deny his Lord again. He needed to know that. That when they took him and when they captured him and when they tied him up and when they stretched him out, he would glorify God. Peter needed to know that. He overcame his self-doubt because he was going to live for Jesus. I think it put power in his life. I think it put hope in his heart. I think it added confidence and boldness to him. If I ever get in the situation again, I'm not going to deny him. I think this would have given him everything he needed. Jesus knows why he said it. This is going to be the ultimate sacrifice, how believers live. It's an extreme requirement. Peter had said in Luke 22, I'm ready to go with you to prison and death. That didn't work out the first time, but in the end, he will die for his Lord. And this is a beautiful, life-changing promise. That's what dedication is. And a person truly dedicated to living is going to be characterized by sacrifice for Christ and content following Christ. When Jesus had spoken these words about Peter's death, he said to him, follow me. This is so important. Follow me. It seems simple enough. If Jesus asked you now, do you love me? What would you say? Jesus asked Peter 3 times, do you love me? Jesus showed his love on the cross. He said it is finished. And he gave up the grave 3 days later and rose from the dead. That gives us the power that we need. Do you believe that, beloved? I pray that you do.